Now that we've seen the anatomy of a simple Java program, let's ask ourselves a question. What then is Java actually? So there are many things we can say about Java, but the one I want to focus on is that Java is an object-oriented programming language. And what does this even mean? So let's break this down a little bit further. And let's look at the first word there, object-oriented. And by object-oriented, we're talking about tackling problems in a way that we're thinking of objects. So when we think of objects, you think of cake, house, car, student, bank account. It could be employee. It could even be inanimate objects. But all these are what make up our program. And so we're thinking in terms of object. And what are objects again? Things that we can relate to. And now we've looked at object-oriented. Oriented means we're thinking in terms of object. We're not thinking in terms of the program, the application itself or the program component. We're not thinking of procedures. We're thinking in terms of object. So when we think of maybe we want to write a program for a bank, for instance, we're thinking of something like the bank account. We're thinking of something like the customers. So we're thinking in terms of object rather than the procedures, or rather than what this program is actually going to do. Now let's go to programming language. I'm going to take these two together. What exactly are these? So programming simply is the process of giving instructions. So when we instruct the computer to perform specific tasks, what we're doing is programming. And I just want to encourage you a little bit from here that programming itself is a process, and even the learning of programming is a process. And so you shouldn't be discouraged if you're trying to learn programming and it doesn't seem to be working for you. I would say there are times when you need to take some time off and just get back to it again. And just know that it's a process. It's a process. It's a process. And just keep at it and keep learning and keep working your way through it. I believe you can do it if every other person can. And if you have that desire and you have the will to do it, and you have the resources as well, you definitely can do it. And so back to the video, programming is the process of instructing the computer to perform a specific task or to do something. But then it also involves writing code. And the end result of programming is because we want to create software, we want to create applications, we want to control devices, we want to do some other things. Just think of anything you can do with programs, playing games, things like that. Those are things we want to do with programming. But what then can we say about programming language? We've established that programming is the process of giving instructions, telling computers what to do. How do we tell computer what to do? I have a video that talks much more about this. But I'm going to leave a link to it in the description, and probably you should find it somewhere on the top or left corner of this video. But because I don't want this video to be too long, a language is just a system of communication, right? And so we're thinking of how can we communicate? How can we really instruct the computer to do something? The computer only understands zeros and ones. I understand English language. I also understand some other languages, native languages. But how can I communicate with the computer? It doesn't understand my language. And that's where programming languages come in. And so think of programming languages like a set of rules and syntax that allows humans to write instructions that a computer can understand and execute. And so I want to write an instruction in a language that I understand, and then tell the computer to do something in that language that computer understands. Again, the only language the computer understands is the machine language. But Java language, It's not my own language either, but then it's also a language on its own. It has its own syntax, it has its own rules, just as every other language have their own rules of, how do you form words in English language, for instance. There are also a set of rules. What kind of words can you use in the English language? So there are rules and syntaxes that allows humans to write instructions that computer can understand and execute. And you think of programming languages, there are lots of them out there. We've got Java, Python, these are just a few, but there are lots of programming languages out there today. And this wraps it up. For Java is an object-oriented programming language. So now let's sum this all up together. Object-oriented, we mean that we're thinking in terms of object. It's a programming language, which means that it has its own set of rules and syntax. By syntax, we just mean this is the kind of language you can speak. So these are just plain simple terms that I feel you can understand. But think of it as though every language have their own rules, they have their own syntax, the way you write things. And that allows people to communicate with themselves in that particular language. In this case, I understand one language, the computer understands another language, but then there's the Java programming language and other programming languages that sits right in between us, allowing us to communicate or give instructions to the computer to do something. I hope this is clear, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Bye.